Hello and welcome to Talking Point. I am Keaton Shaw.
And I'm Sean Michael Small, and you're watching WSN, the only station broadcasted in HD. WSN television with a difference.
With a difference indeed. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program this morning. It's another beautiful day here in TNT. The sun is shining, the traffic is moving, and the news is flowing. Now, there were a couple of stories which Sean and I were not able to cover. And it is still actually trending, and that is with respect to firearm users licenses here in TNT. Now, the Minister of National Security has stated that 34,000 applications are before the it's not acting anymore. Commissioner of Police, yeah. And we do have a new Commissioner of Police actually soon to be sworn in. But the issue is actually not that. The issue was a bill that was being debated in which a clause, Clause 10, would have granted powers to the Minister of National Security to extend the life of FULs to members, this up to 3 years. Now, it was shut down actually by independent senators and opposition senators, but what were they thinking in the first place?
Therein lies the question. I think the first question is to ask, why are you going to just have this direct, somewhat low-key, not really much explanation given as to why you're going to take a scenario. The accepted precedent is the Commissioner of Police, who is supposed to be an independent operator, officer, representative of the state, is to control the granting of FULs. Now, in this bill, the minister is not necessarily granting FULs, but is given the right to extend FULs. So the powers around, the approval of firearm licenses are being infringed upon by a government, a political operator, as opposed to an independent one. So it's cutting into that precedent. That's the first question. Because it's not as though any sort of justification or campaign or any sort of messaging or communication was necessarily given to the public to say why they thought this was even necessary. And that's the other thing. So what would have been the point of it, right? Because you're just extending licenses. So optically, I think you pointed this out in conversation off air. Well, who is it that you want to extend? And why is it that you just can't, rely on the process, the system, to do so naturally for the people who you would want to see have their user licenses extended?
Well, the system in itself is flawed, and it's always who knows who and whether.
Well, that's bureaucracy in
that's
TNT
generally. But with respect to the FULs, I mean, people have been waiting years to actually get their licenses granted when there are those who have suggested that, and this is in private conversations, that it's very easy to get through if you know who to speak to and whose hands to grease. Now, that entire situation with respect to the FUL office of the Trans-Tobago Police Service is yet to be sorted out. But as Senator Gianti pointed out, no politician should determine any validity of any licenses here in Trinidad and Tobago. Senator Paul Richards, independent Senator Paul Richards, he said when he read this clause, it sent shivers down his spine. He asked for a clear explanation as to why this was included. He didn't get the explanation. Nobody has gotten the explanation. It just seems as though it was another avenue, another loophole to grant a minister powers to use at his will. It is in no way necessary that the Minister of National Security, who, need I say, does not even play a direct role within the Trans-Tobago Police Service, direct role, right? He plays a role, but not a direct role in the functions and operations of the TTPS. Should he have those powers at all? Now, I'm just wondering if this is following their investigations, their probe into FULs, whether or not it was determined or thought that this was probably the best way that we can help this issue.
The problem is, strategically, it's a foolish move. Because now they're having to defend the fact Minister Hines had to say that he did not at any point in time want former Commissioner Griffith to give any FULs to his partner, or to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's in one of the daily newspapers' reports. There are multiple stories about this, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very big story. So he has already gone somewhat on the defensive. I'm not even necessarily too sure if that talk has reached that far yet, but my point is the timing of it, right? It does add fuel to the fire. That's the irony. So you're defending something, but you're the one that brought up the topic to the forefront in the first place. Why would you need to extend? Why would the government? Because I'm not too sure if this is Minister Hines or if this is cabinet, and of course, they're not going to say, well, the Minister of Labour is going to be able to, they have to put the Minister of National Security as a clause. So we don't know if it's a cabinet decision or if it's Minister Hines, who it's his main decision with probably cabinet approval that he's looking to do this. We don't know whose idea this was. But we just had a situation where we have this FUL scandal, which, notice, we haven't really heard much about it since, right? Former Commissioner Griffith isn't necessarily want to talk. But the flip side is, if all it was dirt on Gary Griffith, why isn't the government looking to talk about it? So to what extent now are they involved? When you add this little tidbit on top of it, why would a government minister need to extend FULs to encroach on that power granted to the independent operator that is the Commissioner of Police? Well, one could argue they're setting the stage because this is what you see in politics all the time. You're not going to give me my way, so I'm going to legislate the authority around you to bypass you to get it done. I'm not saying that's what it is, folks. I'm just saying that's what it looks like with this timing, and it was foolish.
Now, 3 points with respect to this story, and one, you mentioned Gary Griffith. The thing is, Gary Griffith wants to talk. Whether or not his lawyers advise him that he can, that's another thing, and it's the same thing with the government. But, interestingly, and I've always pointed this out, Gary Griffith claims that the Prime Minister asked him to grant a license to one of his friends for explosives, and the minister also asking for FULs for his friends. Gary Griffith said that publicly. He didn't state that with any form of protection or privileges, such as parliamentarians. The thing is, you have not seen the minister nor the Prime Minister actually take Gary Griffith to court for that, which is very, very key. You should take note of that. 2, with I think what 34,000 FUL applications before the Trans-Tobago Police Service, I'm actually surprised there's not more. I'm surprised that law-abiding citizens actually have not applied for more. That being said, one would have thought, okay, you know what, setting up a division within the TTPS, which already exists, the FUL division, it already exists, might have helped solve this issue, or setting up a new division. But then and again here in TNT, or generally, if you want to try and stop corruption and cut it out, you have to take out as many hands from the pot as possible. And no matter if you set up a new division, there's still going to be influences. I mean, it's good to hear from the Commissioner of Police delegate, Earlier Harewood Christopher, that she will not give in to political pressures. But it's easier to see those things.
The irony, though, is the more hands involved, the harder it is to have a conspiracy. However, I understand what you're saying. You don't necessarily, the larger the overall bureaucracy is, the easier it is for an individual to hide their scam, their corruption, etc. in the large sea of just all this vast bureaucracy of who's in charge of what, etc., etc. That said, the real issue is not having a unit to oversee this function, but rather it is who watches the watchers. Right now, the PCA really and truly, with all of the rumors of corruption throughout the public service, but within the TTPS as well. You just had an incident not too long ago where police officers shot their own fellow officer and then tried to blame it on the victim, who was then killed. Circumstances that are not entirely clear with regards to how or why he was killed in that later scenario, right? But the actual body that is supposed to now oversee and, if necessary, investigate the police, not really hearing much from them. And I understand. I don't just want, accusations and convictions for the sake. I don't want numbers for the sake of numbers, because you could get false positives in that case, right? You could get corruption going the other way. But we're hearing nothing. So when you have no proper oversight. You're just asking. All it takes is one person to have just the right conditions. They could have been a good person ordinarily, but just the right conditions, just the right hardship, just the right temptation, just the right lack of oversight, and then the ball gets rolling on this sort of nonsense.
Well, I had a third point, but I've just completely forgotten it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Let's move on now, shall we, to the next story, the last actually for your daily review this morning. And this was a very, very interesting story. Justice Lisa Ramsumir-Hines, a High Court judge, aborted the trial of a man charged with shooting with intent after she raised concerns about the accused, the attorney's competence. She also raised concerns about the attorney's conduct following an incident that took place the day before while she was giving a ruling on an application by the state to have one of its witnesses treated as hostile. Now, she's actually faced criticism from this, from within the public and within members of the judiciary, but she's standing by her decision. Now, there is no clue as to exactly what the attorney's conduct was, and there is actually a conflict with respect to his exact qualifications as well as his experience within the court of TNT. But that being said, overall, I think if a High Court judge is willing to abort a trial because they deem an attorney as rather, I don't want to say the word incompetent in this case, but I suppose, yeah, I suppose that's the most appropriate way to put it. I agree. I support any judge who decides to do that. We've lost so much money due to less than proficient attorneys here in TNT already. Well done to this judge. At least on the face of it. At least on the face of it, with the very little information that we have.
So one of the things that apparently caused the judge to consider his ability less than necessary for the function, he's the defense attorney, was the fact that he was walking out when she was giving her ruling on the state's application. I believe, let me just...
Yes, to have one of the witnesses treated
treated as hostile. And he was walking out. And yes, it's an emergency. First of all, I don't understand how he was able to find out he just had an emergency while he's in the middle of court. And she's delivering the ruling. This is not a low point in the trial. This is an active part where she's addressing, one would think, both lawyers to say, this is my decision on something that you might want to contest, right? I think it goes without being said, please be here, because if you're not here, then how are you going to carry out your function as a defense attorney as I'm doing an active part of the trial, right? We're not waiting for anybody here. We're not swearing in. This is not anything like that. I am giving a ruling on a matter. And that's one of the things. I understand where you can get a judge that might go too far, right? Judges are humans too, and they are prone to human faults. But like you, maybe this should be arbitrated or taken to court or have a third party look at it objectively in the legal fraternity and not just be an opinion. I don't necessarily care about hearing lawyers' opinions, especially when I would hazard, I guess, maybe they know what went on, but to some extent, if you are a lawyer that was in the courtroom at the time and you witnessed it, because I think she also cited his behavior in previous cases as well.
You see, the thing is, I wouldn't mind hearing their opinions because what a lawyer does, they interpret the law and they make arguments based off of that. So many a times, interpretations are equal to opinions just based off of what the law states. That's their job. So I don't mind hearing that. But to go as far as to say that she actually questioned this attorney's knowledge of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, that was key for me. You know, honestly, it would have given the accused an unfair trial. Let's be real. If all that has been stated is factual, it would have given the accused an unfair trial. Secondly, we can't allow mediocre professionals, if that even is how we're going to call it, to do these things. We don't want it to set a precedence. We don't want this to be a mockery of the court system, of the already fragile judicial system. We don't want it to be a mockery of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago.
At that point you just made there, fragile judicial system. Here's the thing. So the attorney did say that he has been conducting criminal cases since 2016. Your tenure does not indicate your proficiency. That is something that we've complained about with regards to the public service already. While it seems as though the people's careers are based on tenure, not on merit. So just because you're doing a job doesn't mean that you're good at the job. And it's only been 6 years. That's not a lifetime of career where it's a body of work where, we could now say for sure yes or no, right? 6 years in a sports career, we don't know if you're going to be a Hall of Famer yet for the most part. 6 years, yes, Commissioner of Police, certain jobs you might have less time than that, and that's unfortunate in some respects, but that's just the nature of the beast. But as an attorney, your tenure means nothing, right? Now, if he had a defense with regards to his results, but he didn't necessarily offer that, and maybe he didn't want to be seen as boasting, which is fine.
Perhaps more judges need to probably start doing the same. As I said, we've lost a lot of money due to less than proficient attorneys here in TNT, and it's something that we should consider as we try to cut that nonsense out. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for your dealer review here on Talking Point. We'll take a quick break, and upon the return, we examine youth around the world, especially youth development and entrepreneurship. We'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Talking Point on WESN, your content capital. And as my co-host said, we have something to talk about with regards to youth entrepreneurship. One could even say perhaps innovation. In a country where diversification is a major issue, but not just that, even though we are an energy resource-rich nation, we produce and export raw materials used for energy generation, but we still actually do face a problem while our revenues do increase with the higher cost of oil and gas. Well, the cost of our living also goes up. But we also have an issue potentially with food security. Then there's the fact that we might be looking or perhaps needing something of an export crop if we diversify into agriculture, because when things with regards to the energy sector are low, well, that's when our balance of trade gets out of whack. Now, there is one idea, which it might not necessarily solve all of these things for us, but it does potentially touch on them, and if utilized, could help all of them to some degree or another. So it's time to cue this.
Alhaji Siraj Ba spent months of trial and error developing his recipe for cooking fuel made out of coconut shells instead of trees.
I was like, it's either it works or it works. It needs to work, so I need to do everything for it to work.
He lost his adoptive family in a mudslide when he was 17. Before that, he spent years living on the streets, dreaming of the day he could launch his own business.
Biobriquettes help prevent deforestation because they are produced from biomass waste. They are not produced from wood.
He lives in a part of Sierra Leone that has lost 70% of its forest cover over the last 5 decades. One reason for deforestation is people chopping down trees to feed their stoves. Tree roots are essential to holding back the earth during increasingly intense storms.
You move from having lush green mountains to dark brown death traps.
The question now is, can Alhaji convince people in Freetown to swap wood-based charcoal for coconut briquettes? Coconuts are one of Freetown's favorite on-the-go snacks. Vendors end the day stuck with heaps of shells that they need to get rid of somehow, and that costs money.
This was supposed to be waste. They needed to pay transport to dump this thing. Now I'm going to pick it up for free.
Alhaji says his company, Rogue Salt Trading, collects about 2 metric tons of coconut waste per week. He's aiming for 10 tons by the end of 2022.
So this is the backbone of our products. This is wealth for us.
Workers clean the husks and shells and dry them for about a week. Next, they fire them inside this steel drum.
It carbonized for like 3-4 hours. We put the fire out using water. We have to wait for them to get dried.
They pulverize the charred coconuts into a fine powder and add water plus a secret ingredient to bind it all together.
The mixing is very challenging, so the whole process depends on the mix. A slight mistake on the formula, you have to start all over again.
The extruder pushes out slimy rectangular logs that will need to dry for 3 to 4 days. These ones are destined for shisha pipes. In fact, people who smoke hookah are his best customers these days. Alhaji's next big challenge is to grow his sales to reach people who will use his coconut briquettes for cooking fuel instead of cutting down trees.
It's not easy, but it takes time. It's very tough to build something great. If it was not tough, everybody would have done it, so.
His mother says he's wanted to be an entrepreneur since he was a kid.
All day, they look Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, we get Facebook. The man will get the man will get money pass all man. Not only they only say they watch, and they get money. Only for me.
But that all felt very far away when Alhaji suddenly became the breadwinner for his family at age 12.
We man die left pass bokuti pass on me. Only wish they say, Mama, I forget money. So I get 22, 23, I forget money. I for pull you pampu. I for pull you pass of.
He left his village, hoping to make money to send home to his mother and sister.
I was just this kid who wanted to become somebody, but I was not thinking straight. I thought that it is just okay for me to move to Freetown, so without thinking about where am I gonna stay, who's gonna feed me, who's gonna take care of me, but I moved.
He lived on the streets for 4 years until he found a steady job and an adoptive family who took him in.
7 to 8 months after my adoption, I lost my family that I was living with during the mudslide.
Over 1,100 people died, and 3,000 more lost their homes. Alhaji was left with just a few dollars to his name. But he was desperate to do something to stop the deadly mudslides. In the decade before the tragedy, mudslides in Africa had already claimed thousands of lives.
One of the reasons that causes a mudslide is the vast amount of deforestation, because the roots helps to keep the soil firm.
Alhaji began obsessively researching ways to stop deforestation. He found YouTube videos of entrepreneurs from around the world making biomass briquettes to replace wood and charcoal. He started saving money for an expensive mechanical extruder and perfecting his recipe.
Our formula is so outstanding that it can burn for like 4 hours. It emits lesser smoke.
But most people in Freetown still cook with wood.
You just can walk up to somebody and be like, hey, this is new, this is different from what you've been using. So it's a bit tough, but we'll get there one day.
According to a study in the Philippines, 1 ton of biomass briquettes saves roughly 80 small trees. And that can add up. But preserving trees isn't enough.
Part of the solution.
Yvonne Aki Sawyer became mayor of Freetown by campaigning on a promise to plant 1 million trees by the end of 2022. She told us that Alhaji's project makes her feel hopeful for the future.
The work that Alhaji is doing is one of the ways in which you see the coming together of solutions for these multifaceted problem of sanitation and the environment.
Not only is it a source of energy, economically speaking, it might be more than sustainable, but it's also an example of youth entrepreneurship, or just entrepreneurship on a whole. And these are things that, these are a lot of lessons I think TNT could learn. I mean, depending on the situation, we could get the coconut husks, right, to use. And if it lasts for 4 hours, remember when the minister more or less, or the situation when the prices of gas went up using a coal pot. Even if we don't use it, it could be something that we could export potentially, just to make use of what essentially would otherwise be a waste product, and to use it in a more environmentally conscious manner. And who knows, maybe as time goes on, we will now move away from one means of heating our stoves to another. We just need to get used to it, like with regards to his potential customers there in the video. That video courtesy of Business Insider, by the way.
I think yes, the lesson of its impacts on the environment, the positive impact, certainly is one to take away, but there are 2 others. The first lesson I really learned from this was determination, will, and ambition from adversity. You know, when you go through losing your adopted family, when you just make a decision to move somewhere, you live on the street for 4 years, as exemplified by this gentleman, he started doing his research. And he really, after facing all of that, including that devastating landslide, he says, you know, people were lost due to this. My family was lost due to this. But he never gave up. You know, so determination and will and ambition from adversity, you know, that equals to opportunity. The question is whether or not here in TNT we are patient enough. That leads me to my second point, and the second lesson I learned, and that is when he said, it takes time to build something great. It's not easy to get it done, and that's what I'm speaking about, patience, you know. So are we entrepreneurial enough to try and actually look at these little things? Because you can get coconut husks very easily here in TNT. I mean, just walk around the savannah and meet those coconut men who actually have to find a way to dispose of it. And not just them, generally all across the nation, they have to look at ways to dispose of it. Do we have the will? Do we have the patience? Because everybody's thinking, but I don't have the money. I don't have the skill. He didn't have the money. He found odd jobs. He saved up the money. He perfected his formula over time.
Right.
You know, so all of that is part of whether or not TNT's youth population, even though things are probably not going in their direction or in their favor or the way they wanted to, whether or not they're really truly willing to actually utilize all their skills.
Part of the thing is, it's not just about, you know, finding somebody to do the task, but then supporting them. Assuming that the product is not some hack product that just isn't good enough, just isn't worth the money that the person wants for it. When we have entrepreneurs trying something new and we don't support it, well, it really disincentivizes any investor or businessman to try anything new or radical. Now, with that said, there was a time when eating out, fast food was an as big of a deal as it is now. There was a time when bottled water in TNT was not as big of a product as it is now. But people saw the future, saw the potential, and said, look, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to have the patience, hold out for the long haul. It goes back to society. With regards to politics, we don't have that patience. So then we don't see long-term development. That's why we just see little short-term projects, or we might get the one long-term project, and then you have the various political parties fighting over who gets credit, despite the fact that its implementation and completion was over a long time span that was spread across multiple administrations. But I think one of the other things is this is not necessarily something. Yes, we have the coconut water industry is growing, which means, as my coach was getting at, the husks are there. It might be a way to help alleviate some of the costs, to help a local industry continue to grow, to develop a product just like this. Mm-hmm. But I think, as you were pointing out, there's also lessons to be learned. It's an innovation to deal with a problem by creating a product that will kind of bypass the need to cause that situation. That is to say, to cut down trees, to burn firewood. We don't necessarily have that exact situation. But now, can we find some innovation that could potentially deal with our problems the same way? Cost of gas, fuel, etc. is high or higher. Now, I know that people do use charcoal and TNT, so we can't find a intro market for this product or a product like this here and potentially up the islands. But we have other problems as well. So now I guess it's don't just look at the product and say how we could use it, but look at his process and say, how could we use that mindset?
I just want to quickly shift to a story probably not many of us are aware of, and just with the time left, as we're speaking about this. As a gentleman, his name was Sirjad Mukmuddin, right? Who eventually changed his name to Joseph Charles. And Joseph Charles actually worked at a bakery in Port of Spain, but he saw an idea because he learned of a soft drink factory in Canada. Now, he had to change his name because at that time, it was to purchase the recipes from the United States of America. So he changed his name from Sirjad Mukmuddin to Joseph Charles. And he started off his factory, his business, I suppose, by borrowing $100, which was a lot of money at that time. This is in 1940s we're talking about. And he started producing one case of soft drinks per day, right? Eventually, people started buying his product, and he was able to save up his money, and he realized that there was a shortage of glass bottles. So he got into that business as well. Eventually, after investing in that business and after saving up his money and working hard, he bought machinery that was able to pump out 72 bottles per minute. So he's moving from one case a day to 72 bottles a minute, and then eventually 144 bottles a minute. And that's where the story of the Solo soft drink factory was born. Hence the name Solo, by the way. Hence the name Solo. Because of that, he started off on his own. He saw an idea. He borrowed $100, a lot of money. He invested in it. He saved up as much as he could have and worked damn hard. And that is where it came from. And I'm just saying, people might say, well, that was so long ago, and that's the 1940s. Yeah. A lot of that opportunity is gone. I don't think opportunity is gone. Yes, it's difficult now. It was difficult for them back then.
It seems easy now because he already did it, and we know that it worked. But he didn't necessarily know that it would work.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Opportunity is not gone, and opportunity is not lost. You just have to come up with something really unique. You have to think outside of the box. So this is why creativity, imagination, sheer determination, will, and ambition could really equate to opportunity. Again, are you patient enough? Are you patient enough with yourself? And are you going to be patient enough whilst going after that opportunity?
That's the thing, right? It's a risk, but part of it is you have to have that determination to see it through. Does everybody have that? I don't know. But the flip side is, like I said, it's not just about you being the innovator, having the determination, taking the risk. It's also identifying those in our society, in our country, that are willing to take those risks and for the rest of us to give them a chance so that perhaps their initiative could potentially be rewarded.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for that. Cue this. Let's take a break here, and when we return, we welcome our commentator this morning.
It's a fantastic February at Massage Haven as we celebrate Valentine's Carnival and our 1-year anniversary. For the entire month of February, take advantage of our special packages. For Valentine's, show your love with our Lovebirds and I Just Adore You packages. Carnival, let's help you glow with 20% off on all sauna and massage combos. And as we turn 1 year old, special complimentary Massage Haven tokens of gratitude and keepsakes within our anniversary week. Massage Haven, 157B, Monroe Road, Cunupia.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to the program. This morning, Sean and I are pleased to welcome a youth commentator for this edition of Talking Point. Ms. Zakia Gill joins us this morning via the Zoom platform as we aim to have a discussion with regards to tertiary education here in Trinidad and Tobago. Ms. Gill is a spoken word artist. You can go and look out for her on SoundCloud if you get the opportunity. But as part of the youth government, she was the governor of culture. And as I was told by Ms. Chrisette Benjamin, who we had on the program last week, she's a well-respected youth within the community for youth development here in TNT. Good morning, Ms. Gill. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. How are you this morning?
We're doing well. We hope you're doing well. We hope you're good. But it's a pleasure to have you with us. Now, Ms. Gill,
I'm fine.
To get straight into the conversation, as we were just mentioning culture. Now, I know culture here in TNT, as with many places around the world, was you have to go to school. You have to study your book. You have to make sure you go to school and get your education. I mean, even Sparrow sang the song that education is the foundation. You know, it's the passport to the world. But times have changed. Education is not seen as what it once was. In fact, a lot of people are no longer looking at tertiary education. They're actually looking at trades and skills. Is that also a trend that we're seeing here in Trinidad and Tobago? Are youth and young people following high school looking at tertiary education as just perhaps, I suppose, a waste of my time when I can go elsewhere and do something better?
I think because we live in a fast-age society where delayed gratification is slowly going out the door, I believe that the youth of today naturally do not have the patience to go through an undergrad program that may take them 3 to 4, sometimes 5 years if you're doing it part-time. So you're seeing a lot of youths taking the option of, okay, it's best I go and learn a trade, so I can either get a stipend, one, while I study and get skilled in this area, or two, I could just do this for 1-2 years and get a stable job, because the job market now is so saturated. There are so many people with undergrad and master degrees, and you're not being paid your rate, your range. I would say that education is ongoing, because whether it's skill based is still a form of education. But in regards with tertiary education, I think it's because the youth of today, we don't understand delayed gratification, and we don't have patience and learning to wait.
Well, Ms. Gill, good morning once again. So,
morning.
Youth of today don't necessarily understand delayed gratification, but to what extent, you just mentioned that, yes, the job market is saturated. So is it that they're looking perhaps for tradecraft as, well, it's not necessarily what we would have preferred to do, but it's something to do? Or is it that it's seen as an opportunity? Because under the right conditions, it can be in some ways more rewarding, even financially, than trying to slog through some sort of corporate bank job where you don't necessarily make any headway and you spend 20 to 30 years, suffering through having to work for somebody else. Now, the flip side is being in the trades, being somebody who is, for all intents and purposes, self-employed. It's their own business, potentially. It might be difficult. How do youths view these prospects?
The prospect
of going into the trades, is it just something to do, and perhaps they won't necessarily do it for long, or do they look at it as like a viable career that they could thrive in?
The majority of them look at it as a viable income. Again, understanding multiple intelligences, understanding that not every human being functions or learn the same way. Some people are visual, some are logical, some are good with their hands and their eyes. I think it's evolving with the youth becoming more sure of themselves, more certain of themselves, and understanding, okay, I like to use my hands, so I will go into plumbing. This is where I excel. I'm good with visual arts, performing arts. This is what I like, so I'll do a creative arts instead of sitting in a classroom. That book, that writing. So I don't necessarily think it's a means to end. I think it's an awareness that is happening with the youth in Trinidad and Tobago, and understanding that I am good with my hands, and this is where I excel. And thank God for the government of Trinidad and Tobago. They have technical and vocational colleges. So, I think that is what is happening. It's not a means to end. It's understanding who I am as a youth and going where. It's like, you say when you find your passion, you will never feel like you're working. So I really want a lot of youths finding their passion and being skilled, because at the end of the day, it is a form of education. You still have to learn. You still have to be certified in that field.
It's actually rather amazing how as they say, history repeats itself. It's like we're going back to the past. But I like how you phrased it. It's a sense of perhaps awareness and understanding. Youth are wanting to work with the skills that they possess, rather than trying to go through a tertiary education institution to discover themselves. They already know who they are and what they want, so they're going to go after it. So, quite a number of factors that you've pointed out this morning. There is a lack of patience, but that is from awareness and understanding. There's the economic factor as well. 3 years is a lot of time. I don't necessarily have that time. I need to actually start making money from now. But this is now, this actually, to me, and I don't know if you'd like to correct me on this, it tells me there's a decay in the tertiary education system, and that it's becoming really, very much like a relic, the system that exists currently. Is it that, I think people have tried to answer this question before, it needs to be completely reviewed and revamped in its entirety?
I like that question. It's a good question, actually. That leans on the the economy of the day, of the economic factor in Trinidad and Tobago, which I don't think I am certified to speak on, right? Is it a relic? I wouldn't say so, because according to the global competitiveness, and this was a 2014, 2015, when it comes to education, Trinidad is ranked 44 out of 189 countries. We have continued to produce scholars. Our degrees, especially from the University of the West Indies, are well recognized. So to say that it's becoming a relic, I will not say that. I wouldn't say that it's not needed. It is still very much needed. I think it comes into jobs. It's jobs. And this is a whole different topic, where youth are being paid an actual wage, because the cost of living is so high. No way I could be working for $5,000-$6,000 a month, and my expense is $7,000-$8,000 as a young person in Trinidad and Tobago. So I think that's more an economic factor that needs to be tapped into, because the world is made up of all types of people. We need professionals, we need the technical vocational people, we need construction, and these universities, they have stood the test of time, So I wouldn't say it's a relic. I think that's an economic factor where we need to look at wages and pay and job market.
Well, so let me perhaps maybe take my co-host question and go down a slightly different path. It might still be needed, but we see the system primary to secondary to tertiary. It seems very linear. Do your books, maybe you do science, maybe you do business, get a degree, try to get an office job. That is the preferred path that it seemed society wanted the nation's children to take for the last 20 or so years. Is it that the systems, how we teach, it's too limited? And as you were saying, there are different types of ways people learn. We should be better at identifying that, not just to identify who might be more suited and who might thrive more with trades, but even how we teach, traditional academic subjects to find better methods.
I absolutely agree. It's like, I am a giraffe, you are a fish, the other person is a bird, and then you're assessing me on the basis of a cat. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Again, it goes back to multiple intelligence. They can't put people in a circle or in a box and be like, this is the way to learn, and not understanding that people interpret things very, very differently. There are people, they learn by writing. They need to touch, they need to feel. So yes, we need to stop this linear approach. And we don't even touch on learning inabilities. That's a whole different spectrum. And then you throw everybody in one pot, and you expect them to swim, and you expect them to float. And the issue is not learning or education, right? Is when it comes to testing and exam. Because how do you explain that someone could excel during the entire term or during the entire semester, and then when it's time for them to take a test, they quote unquote fail or don't make the grade? We need to look in these things. Or how many times you walk out of the exam room and 5 minutes after you remember.
No, but I hear you on that point, but the flip side to that argument is, if that is the case, we're not setting standards. We're not setting high enough standards, and in the end, we might be creating individuals who are mediocre or just not worth a company's time or investment. So the thing is, I know you mentioned entrepreneurship, skills, and all that, but we also have acknowledged that tertiary education is still recognized globally, at least down the University of the West Indies degree, and it's still very much needed. There are still, positions to be filled down the line. Whether or not we see those opportunities now is an entirely different story. But if we don't set our standards high, or then we would start to lose that credibility and quality.
I think the educational system, we don't encourage thinkers, right? A lot of people, they regurgitate what they learn in a classroom, and I guess that's the way it is designed. We don't generate independent thinking, because if I see a different theory differently, I may be, okay, Zakia, where did you get this? Did you read this in a book? Why do you think this? This is not what I taught you in a classroom. Sometimes that is what you get. But last night I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were explaining to me that when they did their undergrad, not in Trinidad, their lecturer told them that they were so wrong when they responded to the question, but because they had valid points and facts, and she could have understood where she was going with the answer, she had no other choice but to grade her and not give her 0. So I would like to see grading schemes like that introduced in Trinidad and Tobago, where an individual is allowed, where their thought is allowed to flourish, to have their own thought, their own opinion, and not necessarily something they read in a book. Not that you're discrediting anyone, but it's just a fresh and new thinking. So I think that will combat the mediocre, because the world is evolving, the world is changing, right? Something that may be applicable even 5 years ago will not be relevant today. So it's not about reinventing the wheel or throwing away, but figuring out a way, okay, this is what we have, this is a foundation, and how do we build from this? How do we evolve from this? How do we go forward from this?
I actually had a similar example or experience when I was finishing off my first degree, where a lecturer actually had to tell me the same thing. But this is after she had to get her entire class accustomed to, having that analytical skills. She had to actually develop it. And this is tertiary, this is not secondary. This is not even first year tertiary, this is third year tertiary. But it leads me to ask, is there a lack of opportunity? And I'm not just talking about opportunity for jobs and for advancement and careers, but even with regards to the education system. Yes, I know it's a weird question because we have GATE, so at least in its heyday, education for all, but really and truly, that opportunity to thrive, is it that we just don't have enough? And for those really true spots that give the young people real opportunity, the competition for them will be so obscene just because of the amount trying to go for what few limited true opportunities where they could not just have a job. It might be easy to find a job, but to really have a career to build on. Is it too limited?
Well, I know this was recent by the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. I believe this year was the pilot program for Bridging Success, where they actually partnered with the University of Trinidad and Tobago to have a transition program into a degree where a young person who may not necessarily have the basic requirements to earn a degree or university entry, they design a program where they can transition into UTT. So that is one step into the right direction, but I would say no, it's still very limited. It's the simplest way I could.
Well, Mr. Cagill, I want to thank you very much for joining Sean and I on Talking Points. It's been a pleasure, and we certainly look forward for more conversations, but I think you've shed some light on the fact that it's not just economics, it's more for awareness, and everybody's now thinking outside of the box. This piece of paper does not necessarily equate to what I want to do, where I want to go, and who I want to be.
I'm also very happy to hear that young people are looking towards the trades. It's just that, unfortunately, the society might actually need them to be ready sooner rather than later.
Of course, from the pandemic, didn't we learn anything from the pandemic? Just saying.
And I think, no, you're absolutely
That's a good
right.
point.
The COVID-19 pandemic had many positives. I think we've just, we've taken a blind eye to it. But Ms. Gill, thank you very much once more, and do have a good day. Keep well. We'll be in touch.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
You too. All the best. Folks, we break for news on the hour. When we return, we open up the phone lines and, well, we have a question of the day for you. We'll be right back.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Snakey takes Young King title. Opposition leader calls on Law Association to speak out. Fyzabad man shot in face. And internationally, cocaine seized at sea in New Zealand. Now for the details. Heaven Snakey Charles has been crowned the Young King 2023. Charles placed first among 17 other competitors at the finals on February 7th at the Queen's Park Savannah, Port of Spain. The competition is one held every carnival by the National Action Cultural Committee. He sang his rendition, What You Need Again, Trinbago. Snakey celebrated his Diamond Jubilee Calypso win in 2022. Opposition leader Kamla Pusambi-Sessa is calling on the Law Association to speak out on the supposed missteps of the Attorney General in recent days.
I'm calling out the Law Association. I'm calling out all those senior counsellors. Open your mouth and talk, because it's your tax dollars going down in that 20 million as well. Come out and speak. And so he had said that Anand Ram Logan and his clients, this is Limo again, caused the file to go missing. What were you trying to say? Anand put on a CPAP thing and went in the AG office and thieved the file? Or Anand's clients went in the AG's office and thieved the file? Because he's insinuating they caused the file to go missing.
A Fyzabad man is warded in critical condition after being shot in the face on Tuesday. 31-year-old Nicholas York was shot during an attack at his Delhi Road home. According to reports, around 5:30 a.m., York's wife was preparing to leave her Delhi Road home for work when she heard her husband scream. Upon opening the door, she saw him fighting with a man wearing a black mask. The suspect then shot her husband and ran off. In international news now, New Zealand's Navy has intercepted a floating haul of cocaine in the Pacific Ocean in what the country says is its largest drug bust ever. The stash, weighing a total of 3.2 tons and worth New Zealand $500 million, was found drifting hundreds of kilometers northwest of New Zealand. Police believed it was destined for Australia, where it would have been enough to serve that market for a year. The packages were strung up with buoys and some labeled with a Batman symbol. Well, that was your News to the Hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to the program, and thank you very much to Mr. Denise Martin for news on the hour. Now, I was just actually singing a song at the top of my head. It stemmed from that interview with Miss Gill. It's Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall. All in all, you're just another brick in the wall. We don't need no education. We don't need no thoughts control. But as she pointed out, though, education, even if it's not within the school environment, every day you learn something. Education continues until you take your final breath. But thank you very much once more. Let's open up the phone line, shall we?
Yes, let's open up the phone lines. Folks, the numbers should be up on your screen. Wait, but before we do that, we do have the question of the day. And And this ties back into our first topic. It's interesting, the debate about firearm users' licenses. So we wanted to know, given that society has become riddled with crime, would you feel safer if you were legally armed? And the reason why we want to ask this question is, what's the point of debating accessibility to firearms if the bulk of the population might not actually want to have them? So let us know what you think about this. Would you feel safer if you were legally armed at a time when the murder rates, the annual murder rate has now touched 600? Will you look to use a firearm to try to defend yourself if you were ever confronted with violence? Now we open up the phone lines. The number should be on your screen. Of course, please, folks, don't wait until the 11th hour to call, as well as the fact that when you do get through, please mute your TV. There's a delay, and folks tend to have a tendency to listen to the television and not talk to us through the phone. So please, mute your televisions and be quick and succinct with your points. Phone numbers are up on your screen. Join the conversation while we wait. As I said, please don't call any last minute. Well, I think we're hearing the phone lines now, Keaton, but there was one last point about the first topic that I wanted to address, and that's the fact that prison officers and SSA officers are being given firearms to use when they're off duty. I'm not entirely certain who is approving that. It seems as though it's going through the heads of their agencies, potentially, and not through the commissioner, and that has the potential for a whole set of other mess. But
I think the biggest issue is if you are granted a FUL refreshers course every year in how to operate a firearm. Caller on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller. Hello. You're live.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
To answer your question, firstly, no, I would not use paper, because in this indisciplined society that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, if it is that citizens were legally armed, it would just be the Wild West, and that 600 might end up at 6,000. As like my first point, I like that interview with Ms. Gill, and I would like to say this, that a lot of these youth that go to school and end up getting a degree, I don't think they are taught that that this degree is a qualification, and now you need to use this to do something else. And that's my problem. They come out and they look for a job. As she said, they are not being paid according to their qualification, and that is an issue. When you come out of school, you have a degree, but you don't have any experience. And I don't see any reason why some of the degree, which let's say in engineering or whatever it is, cannot come out of university and then go and work in a woodworking shop or a machine shop, and use that education to develop something new, something in that field. You go and you get the practical experience, because it happens. This is what happens in Germany and a lot of those industrial countries. That is why they are so far ahead of us,
Yeah.
Because they take those degree courses and then they put them to work within industry and let them develop. And as they develop into some fabulous skills. That's what happens. And we have a system in Trinidad and Tobago with these TVQ exams that you have, where you go to school, go to these institutions, the UTT and some of the other craft institutions, and when they come out, they have a qualification and they think I am a plumber, so I want to get a paid as an A-class plumber. And I am telling you, a lot of them come out there and they're not worth their salt. They need to go and work as an apprentice after that. I have seen it. I have employed some of them, and I look at the skills and I'm saying, nah, man, you all need to improve your skills.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that is the conundrum that we are in, where the whole system needs to be revamped. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. Caller there with us from Port of Spain. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
You're live and on the air.
Good morning to you, comrades.
Morning.
I want to say to you this morning that the whole population should be concerned about this bill that seems to be ebbing into life in Trinidad. where the strategic, the special services, Sean, what's the name of it?
The SSA, I think it's the Strategic Security Agency.
Where they are going to be able to carry guns. Now, what the government is doing is creating a small army outside the police service. That is a dangerous thing. It is a very dangerous thing. While they may have noble intentions at this time, the reality is that another government may not have noble intentions. And so we can't continue creating armies in a little society like this. We are going to find ourselves in difficulty one day when we have leadership that is much more arrogant than the current leadership. And so I really urge all citizens to begin to write a letter, take up arms. We've got to repeal whatever legislation that has been passed in that particular bill that allows this country to arm 400 to 800 people. Who are they going to defend? Who are these 800 people? Who are these 400 people? Where do they come from? Where do their loyalties lie? And then to go and place arms in their hands. It means that they may take up those weapons against their political opponents. And that could be a very dangerous thing. I plead with the population, as I've always done. I asked you about glass bottles 12 years ago. You're now dealing with it. This issue with the guns is too important. We should all rise up about it and say enough is enough.
Thank you,
Do you have
caller.
any questions you want to ask me on this one, Sean?
No. I'll comment. When I'll comment for you to listen off air, because I was actually wanting to raise this as well, at least to some degree. So as we wait for the callers, I'll just say I agree that it's a concern because it's an intelligence agency. What is the need for them to have guns? As far as I'm aware, I don't think their employment is public knowledge per se. It's not like a prison officer that has to interact with criminals and then they have to have fear of reprisals, or a police officer that has to interact with accused or people on the streets and they have to fear about reprisals. So to what extent is this necessary for their self-protection? I'm pretty sure we're not operating against the Soviet Union trying to, steal secrets from some opposing nation or anything like that. We ain't gonna have any Jason Bournes up in here. So what is the need for it? And I think, yes, it's not about what's going to happen right now. It could be that they want to expedite these firearms. That's why they're doing it this way. They don't want to wait on the commissioner. But you open the door, what's going to happen down the line? And we already see where our systems of policing the police and watching the watchers, they ain't the best right now. So we just add in more.
Furthest from the best.
Yeah.
Caller on the line with us from Chagones. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
I see you go on talking about the system is for tenure and not merit. I have explained that to you on a number of occasions that the public service regulation is that for the upper post, you have to put more reliance on merit than on service. This thing is not being done. And the reason is all the problems you discussed this morning, the oversight by the cabinet and ministers. Instead of them doing oversight, they are interfering, which is what all this missing file and all this thing were about, is because politicians was trying to do public servants work. Your guest made a very good point that people going through the education system cannot get jobs, and the reason why it is the same thing. The government and the agencies are not doing their work. If the infrastructure was being maintained, you would need more engineers. The law in Trinidad and Tobago is that everybody who doing a business have to keep books, or if not, the government could come inside and assess their income. This is not being done.
Mm-hmm.
If the government was doing their work, there will be more than enough jobs for everybody in Trinidad and Tobago. And lastly, your guy talk about the training when people come out of universities, there used to be a thing they call on-the-job training. In those days, was to train you to carry out the job. Today, on-the-job training is to get cheap labor, and the people produce nothing. Any questions, gentlemen?
No, not at all. No. But a couple of points I'll comment on after. Thank you very much.
We have a caller, so we'll comment after the next call.
Good morning, caller from San Fernando. Good morning.
Gentlemen.
Good morning.
I find Sean smiling too much this morning, but that's the next story by itself. He must give up a breakfast.
Actually, I'm very hungry. I haven't had anything to eat for the morning yet. So,
let me just get right to the point.
Yeah.
When one talking about, merits and on the job and policing and whatever, everything else, we're looking at a situation where I always ask that in the public service, when you want to get promotion, you must get promotion by performance. But the union always oppose that because they realize that their membership, or their members, or their shop steward wouldn't get promoted at all. And that's what we need in the service. We need to get promoted based on the merit performance. We have a better public service, a better country. Secondly, in relation to the police and the commissioner, and you're talking about this thing that's happening and the crime is this and that, whatever. And you can't be doing the same thing over and over again expecting a different result. I hold no brief for Gary Griffith, but when he came in, and he made a significant change and brought in people that he knew from the Coast Guard and the Army to the intelligence work as a team that was, let's say, 30 members or whatever. Everybody in the police was, you can't do that, why you going to do that? It's up to intelligence in the police. But the police intelligence was for themselves based on what's happening, and the information is not being passed on to the police hierarchy to go and do the raids and whatever. It was going to the people who were going to raid. But in Gary's time, you have people fear Gary, and he thought in the bandits started to tremble. So it is alleged that it was message was sent to the different MPs and the government and say, hey, they interfere with our turf, how we got supported the next election. So yes, there was a campaign like Get Gary. But at the end of the day, the Prime Minister made a decision to upset Gary's position at the detriment of the country suffering. You and I, there's a talk show host in another station who lost his car, got 1 point. What do we do?
Yeah.
What is your take on a solution? Don't ask the people again. You are the host. Tell us what you suggested as a political scientist.
All right. Thank you very much, caller. Caller online with us from Yaro. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, it's a great day to have a good day, my friend.
Certainly.
And I want to say, Mr. Keaton and Sean, I have 3 daughters, and my big daughter, and this is experience that is on the ground.
Yes.
I'm a farmer, as you know, and it's a nice topic that continues to affect us in many aspects of the professional arena. I try to push my children forward. My first daughter, she got a degree in critical teaching, and she will place a university and then come out to work OJT. She worked for 3 years OJT job training experience. I don't know what the library will give to her experience. Well, when she come out of that, that was it. She's now working as a head dispatcher in roadside assistance for 5 years after that effect. I mean, she's not happy. She is not pleasing with her life, but she has to survive. And this is where we are missing the integrity of the human development for elders who have progressed themselves to understand where education lies in this country. And yet still we have a deficiency of these framework that is not working for the human of citizen of this country. So I thank you, gentlemen, for your time and good topic. And with the gun, I would like to use a gun to protect my assets in agriculture for that purpose, to protect and ensure that I am safe and all that. So, yes, I agree for that purpose. So, have a nice day.
Thank you very much, caller. just want to quickly go back to the first caller from San Fernando when he was speaking about skills, you know, and people could get a degree, but they should essentially fill gaps, you know, and utilize their skills and knowledge in other areas. I'll expand further, actually. Let me take this call from Faizabad first. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning. You're live.
Yeah.
Good morning, Kishan. Good morning, Mr. Small. Good
morning.
Trinidad and Tobago.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, so there is no doubt in the public mind that Gary was doing a fairly good job. I wouldn't want to give him a B+ like McDonald, but he was doing a fairly good job. But on the other hand, I want to touch on something that I heard Pearl N2 Springer commented on last night on TV, saying that the Afro youths are disadvantaged. I know we live in a society where everything is open to everybody, with some people getting preference. Clearly, not the Indo-Trinidadian, because if my mind serves me, most of the social programs were designed in a particular way for a certain particular purpose, to accommodate certain things. From UTT go right back, because it was once said the Indo-Trinidadian were the people who were successful in getting through the UE. I remember there was a big hullabaloo about that. You see? So I want to know if the dog whistle is being blown again for we to be sympathetic with a certain sector of the society and patronize them. My thing is that everybody is supposed to get up and earn. I remember in the 50s, 60s, that the Indo-Trinidadian were not afforded public housing. They were not afforded job in the public service. That drove them into the agricultural sector, which they made successful, send their children to school with the assistance of the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha. And this is the end result when you have devoted people, you know, the Syrians, the Chinese, the Indians, the Africans to a certain extent, but you can't be blowing the dog whistle in this dangerous time, making it feel that one sector of the society is disadvantaged, when in truth and in fact, it's the opposite.
All right, caller, thank you for your point. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
We have another call on the line.
Good morning, caller from Digger Martin.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
I just calling to answer your question. I would not in life want to own any gun or any sort of weapon like that. That is why when I was a young man, I engaged myself in the martial arts. And that has done me well. I protected myself on 4 occasions.
Oh,
yeah. Also, my grandchildren, they're the same thing. They represented Trinidad and Tobago. And it's something that everybody who could afford it should try and do it. It's a very good disciplined thing to do. You spoke about Joseph Charles this morning. My father was in that same sort of situation. Started business with $99.
Yeah.
And he went from, I followed in his footsteps as well, and went. And he went on to achieve in his life, in our lives, very high standards in life, and try to live to those standards right through. So you must have a goal when you're doing things, and you have to try and do those things.
Yeah.
And I think that every young person must try and set goals, try and achieve it. It's a little bit more difficult now, because when my father started business, he just had great ideas. He didn't have much education. But when I joined business with him, we developed and we went on. And we had, properties in main areas in this country. 18 properties passed through our hands. And we knew what it is to work and save and invest. And that has come and gone. And he's gone his way, and I am here now. So I am battling my children.
All right, caller.
Gentlemen, you have a good morning, and
you too.
Take care of yourselves and be careful out here.
Thank you for your contribution. All right, we have
Thank you, caller.
One last caller on the line with us. Final call for the morning. Caller from Digger Martin. Good morning.
You're live. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Right. I would like to see that while those young people in university, yes, you need experience after you graduate, but join a political party, you would surely get through. Then the next thing is coming back to the statement that I made to you all when I first discovered you all early last year. We need to start to train these young men from the age of 13. We need to recreate technical colleges, change some of them junior secondary schools into technical colleges so that we could train these young men in the various skills that would benefit our society, right? Catching them at the age of 17 when they're looking for sex and girls, and some of them already have children and things, waste of time. Now, yes, MIC contributes, but however, they still need on-the-job training after MIC. So just picture that these young men being trained for a period of about 7 to 8 years. Thank you. Later.
Thank you very much. And that's it for the call-in segment. Phone lines are now closed. Thank you very much to all our callers for your contribution this morning. Very quickly, just want to go back to that first caller from San Fernando. When he was mentioning, utilizing, you can still get a degree, but utilize your skills and utilize the knowledge gained from that degree. You have to understand, it's not just the education system that needs reform here in TNT. It's also a mindset in a household.
Yes.
It has existed long before Tobago is what it is today. Many times you would hear stories of the pressures of essay, for example. There's more pressure on the child due to the parent, not because of the exam, but because of the parent. In some households, you have to be this, you have to be that. You have parents choosing your profession for you. You have parents, they're not guiding you. They're dictating where you are to go in life. And many will say, well, listen, that's because we care about you and we want the best for you. You care about them and you want the best for them whilst completely ignoring their skills and perhaps their ambitions and their goals.
That goes to the fact that just because you're the parent doesn't mean you necessarily know how to guide them with regards to education and highly technical situations like that. You're the parent, you could guide them from your perspective to some extent, but part of the problem is modern society is changing a lot. I think with regards to GATE, we also have to come back to the point where when the society is giving public funds to pay for tertiary education, but we have an incomplete system because there's no plan for once you graduate, what do we do with you? Because we're going to have far more graduates than we would normally have had jobs. The job market is expecting X number of graduates. Now we have X plus Y number of graduates because of free tertiary. So that shock, I don't think we've necessarily recovered from yet. I don't know if you have any other comments to make before I weigh in. Because there are a couple of things. First of all, with regards to merit-based promotions, and what you call it said, well, for the upper post, it's supposed to be on merit, Keaton. We spoke about this, creativity. The lower positions generally beat that out of you. So when we're now going to promote for the upper positions people who might have not, they weren't advanced for their creativity, for their judgment, for their critical thinking and analysis. They were advanced for their ability to yes or no. So what do we expect for us to have at the top? So this goes to the next point where the caller asked, what's our solution with regards to crime? And I'll just say this, I think that there's a lot of changes need to be made. Ultimately speaking, though, if we're going to just treat the situation with regards to the police service as we've always has, whatever systems we change wouldn't matter. But what we would like to see is, from the ground up, new recruits being trained perhaps differently so that we could develop leaders in the TTPS. I think Ayla Christopher, she might be very good at what she does. To what extent is she going to have all of the leadership skills to be commissioner? All of the technical skills, the leadership skills, the communication skills, the strategy skills. It's a complex thing, and it's not that she's bad. It's just that the job is so great, and we really need to do better just overall. But for our crime situation, how do we promote from within or promote to those positions? And just for one of the last callers, he was talking about the dog whistling. I'll just say this, demographical statistical analysis, the ratio of the population and the ratio of the number of people getting this opportunity are not the same, therefore they have to be a problem. That's tricky. That's tricky. So we have to be careful. When people put those things out there, right? It could be in good faith, it could be in bad faith. It's a tricky, complex situation we have to be careful about.
Well, simply because of time, I don't have the opportunity to respond today. But thank you to all our callers, and thank you very much to Ms. Gill for joining us this morning for that conversation. Folks, this is where we have to end today's edition of the program. Thank you to my co-host, Mr. Shaw Michael Small, and to all our directors. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, today is a good day to have a good day. And should all go well, should all go good, Sean and I will see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
I'm Sean Michael Small, and we are WESN, the content capital.
Everybody from 40 onwards
should be screened. As you get older, the incidence of cancer rises in men, and you do screening examinations to see if you could pick up the cancer early o'clock, so we could treat it and cure the patient.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, and you are watching WESN, the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
I'm Andre L. Batiste, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
Sing for your lover, baby, sing for your lover.
But that is not the song.
That is my version for the Valentine's Day promo on WESN.
WESN presents its Valentine's Day promotion, Sing for Your Lover.
Send us a video of the best rendition of your favorite love song for the one you love. All contestants have a chance to win a variety of exciting prizes. Send us your entries to thecontentcapital@gmail.com. All videos will be posted to our social media pages and will be shown on WESN.
Well, okay then. Let me sing for my lover. Let me sing for my lover.
My lover.
Respective weapons, we've got positive signals that we hear each other, and I really want these signals to move to concrete sounds, to concrete voice, the voice that is not afraid that Russia will hear this voice. And I'm absolutely sure that the countries of the European Union during this year moved from doubts, but have significantly moved to a more grown-up approach, more powerful approach. We need your powerful voice. We need your powerful, concrete support.
Un mot très rapidement. Dans les heures qui ont suivi, cette agression généralisée du 23 et du 24 février, dans les heures qui ont suivi, l'Union européenne a pris une décision historique pour l'Union européenne, c'est la délivrance